Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive into hypnotism. I know you've been wanting to learn more about this, so we've got a great resource to explore. A lecture by Joshua Strongin, who is a stage and street hypnotist A&D, a certified hypnotherapist. It's going to be fascinating.
He really goes deep into it.
We're going to be looking at the difference between stage and street hypnosis and how the pre-talk is actually more important than the induction. And maybe we'll even try a few suggestibility tests ourselves right here, right now.
Oh, yeah, that could be fun. His lecture is really interesting, and he starts by, debunking all those common myths we've all seen in movies and stuff, like mind control making people cluck like chickens. He makes it very clear that that's not what real hypnosis is about at all.
So not mind control. That's good to know. So what is it actually like then?
Well, the thing is, we all experience hypnotic states naturally throughout the day. Like, think about getting lost in a good book. Or what about like highway hypnosis? You know, when you're driving a familiar route and you suddenly realize you've zoned out for like miles? Oh, yeah, I know that feeling. So it's not as weird or foreign as I thought. But what about the pre-talk? Strongin says it's like 80 to 90% of the work in hypnosis. Really?
Yeah.
Which seems kind of wild to me. Why is that so important?
Well, the pre-talk is all about setting the stage. It's building trust, managing expectations, and addressing any fears or anxieties the subject might have. So basically, Strongin uses it to make the person more receptive to the whole experience. And he uses some really interesting techniques from neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP.
NLP. Okay. That sounds kind of intimidatingly technical.
Well, it's actually more common than you think. It's basically about using language patterns to influence someone on a subconscious level. For example, Strongin uses power words like imagine, notice, and allow to gently guide the subject's attention and imagination.
I can see how those words would create a more permissive atmosphere, like you're being invited to relax and let go.
Exactly. But the most surprising power word he mentioned was or. It seems so simple, but Strongin says it's incredibly effective.
Really? Why is that?
Well, think about it. By giving the subject two options, even if both options lead to the same outcome, it creates this sense of control. So it bypasses any resistance they might have, and they're much more likely to follow along.
That's fascinating. I'm going to have to start listening to how people use or in conversations. Now, Strongin does both stage and street hypnosis right. What are the main differences there?
Well, the environment is a huge factor. On stage, you have a controlled setting. The audience is already primed and ready, but on the street, there are distractions, unexpected reactions. You'll have to build rapport much faster.
Yeah, it sounds like street hypnosis requires a lot more improvisation. It must be incredibly challenging.
Oh, absolutely. Strongin talked about how he has to be much more direct and commanding on the street. He can't always do that deep, relaxing pre-talk we were just talking about. Sometimes it's more about grabbing attention quickly and establishing a connection on the fly.
I'm trying to imagine how you could even do a pre-talk on a busy street corner with people just rushing by. How does he even begin to manage that?
He has to streamline it for sure.
Yeah.
He mentioned that he often skips that whole classroom daydreaming analogy and just jumps right into something everyone can relate to. Highway hypnosis.
Smart. So he adapts his approach depending on the situation. What I'm really curious about, though, are those suggestibility tests Strongin uses. He mentioned a few in his lecture.
Yes, he did. He uses them both as a way to gauge how receptive someone is to suggestion A and D as a springboard into a deeper hypnotic state. One of them is called the big head, small head routine. It's based on this spiral visual, and how you perceive it can tell you how suggestible you are.
That sounds intriguing. What other tests does he use?
Well, there's the classic finger magnets test. You can actually try this one right now. Just hold your index fingers a short distance apart, and imagine there are magnets on your fingertips pulling them closer and closer together.
Okay, I'm doing it. My fingers are definitely twitching. It's weird. I can almost feel that magnetic pull even though I know it's all in my head.
Right. It's a great example of how powerful the subconscious mind can be. And sometimes Strongin can even transition from this simple test into a full hypnotic induction.
Wait, really? How does he do that?
He uses what he calls a shock induction. So, for example, he might be doing the finger magnets test with someone, and right when their fingers are about to touch, he'll suddenly separate their hands and say sleep.
So you're saying that or is that powerful?
It's about disrupting the conscious mind just long enough for the subconscious to take over.
Wow, that's pretty slick.
Yeah.
Okay, so what other tests does he use?
Another one is the magnetic hands test. It's similar to finger magnets, but you imagine your palms being drawn together. Strongin says that highly suggestible people can actually overcome physical limitations with their imagination in this test.
It sounds like something out of a movie. What about the heavy light test?
That one's a classic. The subject imagines one hand getting heavier and the other getting lighter. Strongin uses a similar shock technique here too. As the subject is focusing on the sensations in their hands, he'll swiftly move their hands, interrupting their focus, and then say, sleep. It's all about timing and that element of surprise.
That's incredible. It seems like he's constantly reading the person's reactions and adapting his approach on the fly.
Exactly. That's what makes him such a skilled hypnotist. He's not just following a script. He's really tuning into the individual and the energy of the situation.
So we've talked about how Strongin sets the stage and tests for suggestibility. But how does he actually get someone into a hypnotic trance?
That's where the induction techniques come in. And Strongin has a whole repertoire of them, both formal and informal. He has a whole toolbox of techniques, each tailored to different situations and individuals.
Yeah.
A whole toolbox, each tailored to different situations and individuals.
So what are some of his go-to techniques? I have to admit, I'm kind of picturing those swinging pocket watches from old movies.
Yeah. That's a classic image. But Strongin's approach is much more nuanced. He talked about formal inductions, like the progressive relaxation induction, or PRI. It's a very systematic way of guiding someone into a state of deep relaxation, both physically and mentally.
Okay, so walk me through that. What does a PRI actually involve?
Imagine you're lying down, eyes closed, and Strongin is speaking in a calm, soothing voice. He guides you to focus on your breath, slowly counting backward from 10 with each exhale. And with each number, he suggests that you're going deeper and deeper into relaxation, letting go of any tension.
I can practically feel my shoulders unclenching just thinking about it. It sounds incredibly peaceful.
It is. And Strongin really emphasizes that it's all about surrendering to the experience, allowing yourself to drift into that relaxed state.
Surrender is an interesting word choice. It implies a certain level of trust in the hypnotist.
Absolutely. Trust is essential for any successful hypnotic induction. Now, in contrast to the more gradual nature of the PRI, Strongin also talked about these rapid inductions that sound almost too good to be true.
Rapid inductions? You mean he can hypnotize someone instantly?
It sounds incredible, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he explains that with the right techniques and a deep understanding of how the subconscious mind works, it's possible to bypass that gradual relaxation process and induce hypnosis much faster.
So how does he pull that off? Does he snap his fingers or something?
He actually uses techniques similar to those shock inductions we talked about earlier. It's about creating a momentary disruption in the conscious mind's processing, a break in that internal chatter, which allows the subconscious mind to rise to the surface.
Okay, so like with the finger magnets test, he might interrupt that flow of thoughts by separating their hands just as their fingers are about to touch.
Exactly. By interrupting that focus, he creates a gap where the subconscious becomes more accessible to suggestion.
That's really remarkable. It sounds like he's constantly walking this tightrope between conscious and subconscious awareness.
He is. And that's what makes his work so fascinating. He's not just a showman. He has a deep understanding of the psychology involved. And speaking of psychology, we can't forget about the ethical side of hypnosis. Strongin was very clear about the importance of responsible practice.
Right. He did mention having separate insurance for hypnosis versus magic. I thought that was interesting. Why make that distinction?
Well, it gets at the heart of what makes hypnosis unique. Magic, while entertaining, is ultimately an illusion. Hypnosis, on the other hand, deals with the complexities of the subconscious mind. It has the potential to create real and lasting changes in a person's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
So it's not just about entertainment. It's about working with a powerful force that needs to be handled carefully.
Exactly. Strongin takes that responsibility very seriously. He's not just out there for cheap thrills. He's genuinely interested in the potential of hypnosis to help people. In fact, he uses his stage shows as a platform to promote his hypnotherapy practice.
That makes sense. After seeing him work his magic on stage, I bet people would be intrigued by the therapeutic possibilities.
Absolutely. Now, if you're interested in learning more about the practical side of hypnosis, Strongin recommended some great resources.
Oh, definitely. What books or authors did he mention?
He highly recommended Reality is Plastic by Anthony Jackin. It's considered a must-read for anyone interested in street hypnosis. He also mentioned several books by Ormond McGill, who's like a legend in the field. The Encyclopedia of Stage Hypnotism and the New Encyclopedia of Stage Hypnotism are supposed to be incredibly comprehensive.
Fantastic. I'm definitely adding those to my reading list. So we've talked about pre-talk, suggestibility tests, induction techniques. What else stood out to you from Strongin's lecture?
Well, he also delved into how suggestions work, how they're planted in the subconscious mind, and how they can influence behavior.
Right, suggestions are kind of the core of hypnosis, aren't they? What did Strongin have to say about them?
Well, he pointed out that there are different types of suggestions, each with its own purpose and effect. For example, there are direct suggestions which are pretty straightforward commands, like you will feel relaxed or your eyelids are getting heavy.
Those seem pretty easy to understand. What other types did he talk about?
He also described indirect suggestions, which are much more subtle and artfully crafted. They often bypass the conscious mind's critical filter planting ideas in the subconscious without directly stating them.
Okay, can you give me an example?
So instead of saying, you will stop smoking, a hypnotist might say something like, imagine how much better you'll feel when you're free from the need to smoke.
That's clever. It's like you're leading the person toward a desired outcome without them even consciously realizing it.
Exactly. And Strongin is a master of using both direct and indirect suggestions to achieve his desired results. He also talked about post-hypnotic suggestions, which are suggestions designed to continue influencing the subject's behavior even after the hypnotic session is over.
So, like, if he wanted someone to feel more confident in social situations, he could plant that suggestion while they're under hypnosis, and it would carry over into their everyday life.
That's the idea. It's fascinating how hypnosis can have such a lasting impact on people's thoughts and behaviors.
It really is. It makes me think about something Strongin said earlier about the connection between athletes and hypnotizability. He noticed that athletes are often very responsive to hypnosis, right?
He did. And it makes sense when you think about it. Athletes are constantly training their minds and bodies to achieve peak performance. They learn to focus their attention quiet, their inner critic, and trust their instincts.
Mm. So in a way, they're already tapping into those subconscious resources that hypnosis accesses.
Exactly. Think about it. You've probably experienced this yourself. When you're in the zone, fully immersed in an activity, time seems to distort. Your actions become almost automatic. That's your subconscious mind taking the lead. Athletes train to access that state more readily, which could explain why they tend to be so responsive to hypnosis.
That's an insightful connection. I love how this deep dive is revealing these hidden connections between seemingly unrelated things. It's changing the way I think about both athletes and hypnosis.
It's all about expanding our understanding of the human mind and its incredible potential.
Well, I'm definitely feeling more intrigued by hypnosis than ever before. But what about those dramatic stage shows we've all heard about? People clucking like chickens or forgetting their own names. Did Strongin talk about what he gets people to do on stage?
He didn't go into specific routines in this particular lecture, but he did emphasize that the key to a compelling stage show is choosing suggestions that are not only entertaining, but also respectful and safe.
Okay, so maybe no chicken impressions. But what kind of suggestions would fall into that category?
Think about scenarios that play with perception or create humorous situations.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Imagine Strongin suggesting to someone that they've suddenly become a world-famous singer, or that they can only speak in rhymes.
That's hilarious. I can totally picture those scenarios playing out on stage. The audience would be in stitches.
Exactly. And Strongin's skill lies in his ability to not only choose the right suggestions, but to deliver them in a way that's both convincing and entertaining.
It's like he's creating a mini play within the larger hypnosis show, drawing the audience into this alternate reality.
And he does it all while ensuring the safety and well-being of his volunteers. He's constantly monitoring their responses and adjusting his approach as needed.
It's remarkable how he balances the entertainment aspect with those ethical considerations. It's clear that he takes his responsibility as a hypnotist very seriously.
Absolutely, and that's what sets him apart as a true professional. He's not just in it for the spectacle, he genuinely cares about the impact his work has on people.
This whole conversation has really got me thinking about something Strongin mentioned earlier, the idea that athletes are often highly hypnotizable.
Yes, he observed that athletes are often very susceptible to hypnosis because of their ability to tap into their subconscious minds to achieve peak performance.
Think about a basketball player effortlessly sinking a free throw, or a gymnast executing a flawless routine.
Yeah,
They're not overthinking those actions, they're letting their subconscious take over.
precisely. And that's the takeaway I hope you, our listener, glean from this deep dive. Hypnosis isn't some mysterious force reserved for a select few. It's a natural human capacity that we can all tap into, whether it's through guided relaxation, focused attention, or even just losing ourselves in a good book.
So in a way, we're all capable of accessing that hypnotic state of flow when we're fully immersed in an activity.
Exactly. As Strongin reminds us, we're all constantly being bombarded with suggestions, whether we realize it or not.
That's a bit unsettling when you think about it.
It is, but it's also empowering.
How so?
By becoming more aware of the language people use and the subtle ways they try to influence our thoughts and behaviors,
Oh.
we can become more discerning and empowered individuals.
So we're not just passive recipients of suggestions. We have the power to choose which ones we accept or reject.
Precisely.
That's a great point. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of hypnotism, I encourage you to pay attention to the words you hear and the suggestions you encounter. You might just be surprised by the hidden hypnotic messages swirling around you.
And if you're feeling inspired to explore this fascinating world further, be sure to check out those resources Strongin recommended.
You never know what hidden depths you might discover within yourself.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.